bad. I just want to say that you are not what I expected at all at first. Like when I saw your video on YouTube, I was like, okay, great. Another 外教 teaching us how to speak their language in English. But I was surprised the first few minutes in to your videos. I was like, all your approaches, all your beliefs, all your mentalities were spot on, and not to mention almost identical to mine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, okay. And obviously you speak perfect Chinese as well as other languages that I don't even know. I only know you speak Chinese, Japanese, French, Spanish, I want to say. Yeah, and I don't know what the rest of them are, but very impressed. And you also, you were also actively addressing, some of the misconceptions out there, which is what I'm trying to do. But obviously I have a Chinese face, and when I speak to my audience about, learning a foreign language, the most criticisms I get were like, oh, who are you to speak about English? You don't look white. And so I guess my first question for you was, did you ever get that kind of criticism when you teach people how to speak, any other languages other than Chinese, other than English?
Right. Well, first of all, I don't teach languages, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm basically a language learner.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a teacher. At Link, I have tutored, because we have one of the options at Link is that you can tutor other members.
Mm-hmm.
But when I tutor others, or when I, sign up to speak to someone in Russian or Korean or whatever, it's a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, my preference, if I'm learning a language, is to speak to a native speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Your English is, I don't know if you're a native speaker or not, quite frankly.
I'm not.
You're speaking like a native speaker. So, I don't know, the face has anything to do with it. I think we have to get past those ideas. I lived in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was in Japan, I played on it. We had a group of Canadians. We had a hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
And we played against Japanese teams.
Mm-hmm.
And a local Japanese beer company wanted to do a commercial showing Canadians playing hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted us to exclude our two Japanese Canadians from the ad. And we said, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, we aren't doing our ad with you. We're in a world now, just because your name is Smith, that doesn't make you English more than someone whose name is Polish name, Chinese name, whatever. So I think those are non-issues.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and as a teacher, even if you're not a native speaker, like a non-native person, someone who has you don't have an accent, but if you had someone with a stronger accent, as long as they don't tell a learner that they have to copy, like someone with a strong Russian accent, you have to copy, no, there's so much content available on the internet. So that if the teacher is a good coach, if a teacher encourages people, if the teacher helps the person overcome the frustrations that are part of language learning, if the teacher can make the person feel confident, if the teacher can show them the right way to learn, taking advantage of all the resources that are on the internet and elsewhere, radio and TV and movies and stuff, that's fine. So the issue of what their name is, how they look, is really not very relevant. Certainly I've never had anyone. But to be fair, I've never tried to teach Japanese or Chinese to anyone. I can share my experiences as a learner of Japanese and Chinese.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I never advertise myself as a teacher. I'm just someone who, has learned how to speak English somewhat fluently, I would say. And whenever I would share, even with my relatives and family, they would, question my authority just because I didn't go to, I live in America now, but my English was basically like this before I came here. And now people think that it's because I have this environment. It's one of the things that, in your videos, it's a big misconception. And I specifically liked your analogy with the swimming pool thing.
Yeah. You know what? I can tell you that, I was in China when I was promoting my book. I met students at some of these universities. I would give talks at, what was it, the Yu Xueyan in Beijing, or and some of those students were flawless in English, Japanese, French, and they never left China.
Right.
And I can show you hundreds of thousands of immigrants in Canada.
Yeah, and America.
Speak English, period. Not just Chinese, but the Chinese are amongst the worst. And there was a survey done, and it showed that those immigrants who arrive in Canada speaking English well, obviously they continue to speak well.
Yeah.
And those that arrive who don't speak well, very few of them are able to take advantage of being surrounded by the language. Very few of them. Because ultimately it's not the surrounding, it's the motivation of the learner.
Because with environment, I feel like you could easily avoid it, especially now that there are so many immigrants and there are these communities and neighborhoods. You can almost just live the way you lived before in China or other countries.
I mean, I learned Mandarin in Hong Kong in 1968. Nobody spoke Mandarin. Not nobody. You could go to a Shandong restaurant and you might find a waiter who could speak to you in Mandarin, but nobody on the street spoke Mandarin. However, I was able to create my own language world.
Right.
Audio, books, reading, my teachers. It's up to you as an individual. And then I know a lot of Chinese people in Vancouver, recent immigrants from China. They go to their ESL class once or twice a week, and that's all they do. They don't watch Chinese, or at least English TV at home. They have friends, and they and then they say, but suddenly I want to speak to my son's teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't just learn English by speaking to your son's teacher. If you don't do all these other things, or you're stopped by a policeman for speeding, and you want to communicate with a policeman, you can't all of a sudden, okay, now I'm going to speak English. You have to do all these other things so that when the situation arises, you can perform.
Exactly.
Unfortunately. But it's not just the Chinese. I mean, there's Italians who've been here for 25 years that can't speak English. It's all comes down to attitude.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds preposterous now that we talk about it like that, but I noticed that there's this trend of overlooking the logic and reason side of things, especially when it comes to learning a foreign language, because we see these native teachers and they look so promising that you just buy into that. You want to buy into a fantasy. You want to buy into a promise. And it's not that people don't want to put in the work. It's that they want to see immediate results. They want to see, return of investment.
Yeah, I mean, there are no immediate results in language learning.
No.
And I think there's too much emphasis on speaking. So I learned something today. I should be able to say something today. Whereas my experience is you need to put a lot of work into comprehension.
Exactly.
Which is what I'm doing right now in Arabic. I can't really say much in Arabic.
Wow.
But I understand more and more. I have more and more words.
Yeah.
And I'm close to when I want to start speaking. I'm close.
Wow.
And that's it. So there's no me. And I've been at it for 6 months.
How much time in a day do you spend on learning it?
Well, it's probably, an hour and a half, because most of it is listening. Because, if I prepare breakfast here, as I do, or clean up, or do the dishes, or I'm sitting in the car, or I work out, I exercise, all of that is listening time. Now, what I listen to, either I'm listening to it for the 10th time, or I'm listening to it for the first time, don't understand it very well, so then I have to go and read it, and I read it on link, I look up words, and then I listen again, and I still don't understand. So, it's like 75, 80% listening, 20% working on the text, looking at words, saving words, reviewing words, that's all.
So would you say the time you do spend on learning a language is more like passive exposure to the language, and then when you have time to it, it's more deliberate, it's more repetitive?
Well, it's I would say that it's like 75% listening, because it's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
You can do that.
You can do it anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. 20% reading, but I read on link, right, on my iPad. There, I can see the words highlighted. I can text to speech, hear them in Arabic. It's not, it's phonetic. but it's not totally obvious because the vowels are missing. So you see the word, you don't know how to pronounce it. Text to speech, I hear it. So that helps me. And then I spend maybe 5% of my time reviewing these things in flashcards. But the grammar, I don't even bother about it because unless you are familiar with the language, the grammar explanations really make no sense. You can't remember them because they're referring to something that you have no experience of.
Yeah.
Once I'm familiar enough with the language, I'm already used to the word order and the structure, and many of these patterns are already natural to me.
Yeah.
Well, at the time I can read the grammar explanation.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I don't spend much time on grammar. No.
Not yet, right?
Not yet. No interest.
Yeah, that's one of the...
I've looked at it, but it makes no impression on me because it refers to things that I have no experience of.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I advocate for. I always emphasize, it's very important to learn grammar and learn grammar precisely and accurately. But many people, they misunderstand me. They think that grammar is about, doing exercise drills and looking at the grammar book every day and ignore all the practical reading and listening. And I think it's very important to incorporate theory and guideline with actual physical content. You can't just rely on theory because you get your brain gets tired, and because you don't have enough exposure to a language, it doesn't really make sense to you.
I think people who think that learning the grammar, the rules, sort of the structure in isolation, that's some kind of a shortcut. There's no shortcut. You have to listen to a lot. You have to read a lot because the brain will learn. If we give the brain enough experience, enough exposure, enough stimulus, the brain starts to sort things out. And if you learn that way, you get a solid grasp of the language naturally. But if you don't say, here's this language and it's structured this way and that way, we can't remember those things. Our brains are not really built for that kind of sort of logical explanation. Brains are much better at naturally getting used to a situation.
Finding patterns.
You have to read and listen a lot. No shortcuts.
Right.
In my experience.
I remember you talked about input, and it's a great summary of all the things that I advocate on my channel, and and I think people have an aversion to that because input means you have to actively try to understand things, and they want to, like you said, they want to start speaking right away. And the most common criticism I get is, why are you teaching us how to read, how to write? I just want to speak. As long as I can make myself understood, that's fine. That's okay with me. I don't want to take it to another level. What would you say to that? Because I can't.
Well, that's fine. I mean, it depends what people's goals are. However, it depends where the person lives too. But if you're living in North America, just to get a few phrases is not going to get you very far.
No, because
communicating with someone, a native speaker, you have no control over what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And they have a much larger vocabulary than you do.
Yes.
So people say, well, as long as I have 200 words, I'm fine. Yeah, but the person you're talking to doesn't have 200 words. They have lots of words. And if you can't understand what they're saying, it's like they try to train people for a certain job. As long as I can say, you want 2 cans of peas, okay, you're a cashier at a grocery store or whatever.
Yeah.
Anything could be said to you. You have no control what people are going to say to you. Yeah. And therefore, actually, you need quite a large vocabulary. You need quite a high degree of familiarity. Otherwise, and people can tell when you don't understand. If I'm speaking to someone and I see in their eyes that they don't understand what I'm saying, then I have no more interest in communicating with that person.
Exactly.
None, zero.
Exactly.
And even people who claim to speak a language quite well, and I lived in Japan for 9 years, did lots of business in Japan, and some of the people who work for Japanese trading companies, they pride themselves on speaking English, negotiating, and I can tell that he doesn't really understand what I'm saying. Then I switch to Japanese, because I don't want to be communicating with someone who doesn't understand what I'm saying. And understand is a lot of things. It's not just the words, it's understanding the real meaning, and that requires a bit of an understanding of the culture, and therefore you have had to expose yourself to a lot of reading and possibly television and stuff so that you really understand where this person is coming from. It's the same with me. If I communicate with a Chinese person in Chinese, it's not just that I know a few words. I have to know a little bit more about their background so that I can actually understand where they're coming from and what they're saying. And if you're in a North American environment, you have to have that level of comprehension in English.
It's definitely underrated.
How well you speak. Like I have, say we have a Vietnamese gardener. His English doesn't speak it very well, but he understands it. You know when you're talking to him. You can talk about the local hockey game, hockey team here. You can talk about anything you want. He speaks with a very heavy Vietnamese accent, but he totally understands. So comprehension is the biggest thing. So I have a level of confidence speaking to him, whereas someone else who might have a good accent, but he doesn't understand what I'm saying, I'm uncomfortable.
I think a lot of my Chinese students still, what they don't understand is that those foreign teachers, those native English teachers in China are being paid to listen to you, are being paid to talk to you. So that's why they are so much more patient than your average native speaker that you found on the street. Their job is to listen to you, not necessarily get you to fluency per se. And they this kind of feeds into their ego or pride. Oh, now I have a foreign teacher, and I'm one step closer to my American dream.
There is something attractive about a foreign teacher. If I'm learning Chinese and I'm in a conversation class, I don't want to have my conversation class with an American.
Sure.
To me, wow, I'm talking to a real live Chinese girl in Chinese. That's more attractive. But in terms of learning, I think someone like you who has actually gone through the process of learning English to a very high level, you have experience that the foreigner teaching Chinese or at least teaching English in China doesn't have. So the one doesn't exclude the other. I think it's fun to have a conversation with a native speaker. You have this feeling of, because if I'm Chinese and you're Chinese and we're speaking English, there's a level of this is not real. Because actually real would be we should be speaking Chinese.
You can't verify if what I said was correct. There's no way of
it's not a matter of correct or not correct. I think you can speak English as correctly as a native speaker. It's more a sense of that person is a native speaker, say Chinese. I speak Chinese with a native speaker. Wow. Whereas if I'm speaking Chinese with another native English speaker, there's something about that that's artificial. That's all.
Right.
However, when it comes to someone who can help a learner, I think a non-native speaker like you can help a learner, encourage them, possibly inspire them, advise them, all those things. And at the same time, your level of English is essentially a native level, so you can provide all of those services. So I don't see any problem there.
You talked about creating your environment, and I don't know if you ever lived in China. Have you? No. So how did you create your environment?
Well, I have at home, first of all, a lot of reading.
And how did you find these books?
Pardon?
How did you find?
I started back in the when I was 1968 or so. You get books with word lists, because we didn't have online dictionaries. So I had to find, and there were lots of good books. There were relatively easy readers on Chinese history. There's lots of the whole Yale in China series. There's lots and lots of books. With authentic content with word lists. So that's what I used, and often was audio with that. And recently, when I've been to China, I buy. You can buy CDs on Chinese history, Chinese philosophy, xiangsheng, which I like listening to.
I remember you talked about it in your videos.
Or whatever. Listen. So you have these CDs you listen to. And here in Vancouver, I have Chinese friends, so I can get together and speak to them in Chinese.
And what do you do when you run into a word that you don't know or run into something, that doesn't make sense to you?
I work about it in Chinese now because I'm focused on learning other languages. But typically that's why I learn like Arabic or Romanian or Greek or whatever language I'm learning. I do it on Link because then I can look up the words are saved to my database. I can review them again, listen again. So essentially until I am at a level, like in Chinese, if I read a newspaper, I basically know most of the words. There's a few words that I'm missing I don't worry about.
Yeah, I mean like before when you were just starting out.
I learned Chinese before I had any online anything, right?
Yeah.
So I would be using these books. There's tons of books at home that all have these word lists. Because looking something up in the dictionary is a complete waste of time. Because you have to assume that any word you look up, you're going to forget the meaning of. Probably right away. You look it up, you close the dictionary, you forgot. Yeah. So that's true, I think, with most people. So you have to have, that's why the books with the word lists that I used to use, I reread the section, I reread the word list, and so eventually it starts to...
Yeah, you talked about how it's unnecessary.
But nowadays I have links, so I just look it up.
Yeah. You talked about how unnecessary and ineffective to memorize vocabulary without any context. Is that what you were talking about just now?
Well, it's difficult to remember them. That's all. And so it's just the concept. It's through this continued exposure. And again, the way we do it now with Link, where I see these words highlighted. Like often you look up a word. You don't even, you forget the meaning, and B, you forget that you've ever seen the word before. Yeah. So it's there, if you've seen it before, it's highlighted now in yellow, and you can see the meaning, and you just keep reading and reading, and the words keep reappearing, and gradually they stick. There are some people who like to, by the way, I'm going to have to run soon here, but there are people who like studying decks of flashcards and Anki and stuff like that. It depends what people like to do. But my own preference is to just continue to expose myself to the language.
Okay. What's the most important advice, or what's the most important factor that determines a language success for you?
Attitude.
Attitude?
Attitude and time.
And time.
Yeah, attitude and time. It takes time. And so the attitude is important. You have to believe you can do it. A lot of people who have never achieved fluency in another language don't think they can do it. They're kind of going through the motions. Yeah. You have to like the language. Learning Chinese, French, Greek, Arabic, whatever. I like the language. I want to be with those people.
Okay.
You have to like it. You have to like the process.
Okay.
So you have to find a way of learning that you like. You like it. You like the language. You like the process. You believe you can do it. If all of those things are there, and you put in the time, you see, no question.
Okay. One last question.
You can't resist the language. You can't resist the language. And a lot of people resist, that's stupid. Why do they say it that way? Like I always use the example. When I was learning Chinese, I had another person studying with me, another Canadian. And so the first thing you learn in Chinese is, 你去不去? And I says, what's that? You go not go. That's stupid. Why did they say that? So once you start thinking that, because every language says things different. So if your attitude is, that language says things in a strange or a stupid way, if you have that kind of resistance to the language, you won't get it in. You have to just take it in. That's how they say it. That's it.
It's like take it or leave it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it. Take it or leave it. Like it.
Well, so my last question for you is, what's the most annoying misconception that you get, or excuses?
What bothers me is all these people who say, well, you can't learn language past the age of 10.
Yeah, I mean, look at you.
Yeah, you can't learn language past the age of 10, or some people just have talent.
Yeah.
My answer is 2. 1, it may be true that some people are better at language learning than others.
Maybe.
May be true that after the age of 10, you're not as good at learning a language.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everyone can learn. Some people may pronounce better. Some people may do other things better. I personally feel that I'm a better language learner now at the age of 72 than when I was 20. But maybe I'm wrong.
I believe you.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I also point to the example of, you go to a place like Sweden or Singapore, people speak 2, 3, 4 languages. I don't believe that people in Singapore have a special gene that makes them better at languages, or in Sweden. I don't believe that. So it's a matter of circumstance, exposure, time, attitude.
Yeah, attitude.
But in Singapore, you're going to speak Mandarin, Hokkien, and Malay and English. It's just normal. Nobody considers you a genius for doing that. It's in North America. Wow, you speak another language. Wow.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So attitude. Yeah. And so not talent, not age, attitude.
All right. It's a great honor to speak to you. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Okay. Bye-bye.